This is the EVP Podcast.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the EVP Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Beaker.
I'm Ghosty. I'm DVO.
Okay, good. We got that out of the way.
Did you get it right this time?
Yeah, we did.
Perfect.
There was a lot of people that commented on our last episode on the moon landing. I had one person try to tell me that there was video evidence of Walt Disney faking the moon landing in 1955. And then I found out it's actually when Tomorrowland opened.
Did he believe that Steven Spielberg really killed that Triceratops?
Probably.
That Steven Spielberg posed with during the Jurassic Park filmings?
Can't believe they just let him kill dinosaurs like that.
I can't believe it.
Who gave him license for that gun?
Such majestic creatures.
There was a ride in Tomorrowland when Disneyland first opened that was a rocket simulation of flying to the moon and back. And that's why
Should I sing?
Walt Disney.
Fly
Don't.
me.
No, you shouldn't.
Haters.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? We actually had a listener email us with some stories. Do you want
Step
to
up my voice, how good it was at the... All right, I believe it.
They're like, oh, his voice sent me to the moon.
and back?
Did angels join the studio?
A choir of angels.
Yes.
Choir of angels.
So is that the same comment you're speaking of? Or another one?
No, they shared stories with us
Ooh, I love a good story.
about UFOs and ghosts.
They're real. All of it's real.
All of it's real.
Okay.
She did mention, so she emailed us about our Area 51 episode
Okay.
with the former FBI agent that worked at
Yes.
Area 51. We did play an EVP at the beginning of that episode that was sent to us by listener John, if you remember that one.
Yes.
Yep.
We didn't know what it said.
But that was at Area 50.
Well, that was at the beginning of that episode, of
Right.
the Area 51 episode.
But it was
we played
at-
the EVP from Asylum 49
Asylum 49.
that John sent us. We didn't know what it said. She said what she thought it said. I went back and listened, and I can hear that. And it might just be because she mentioned it. But stop crying.
Stop
Crying. And I went back and listened to it, and that was
Now
what,
it sounds
that's
like
what it sounds like now. So she actually sent us a couple stories. One with UFOs.
And then real quick, that was episode 66, Insane Asylum 49, if you want to go back and listen.
If you want to hear the EVP, you want to listen to 67, the former FBI agent at Area 51.
Oh, you're right.
Yes. So when she was young, when she was a baby, about 1 or 2 years old, they were driving. Her mom was taking her to a USAF friends and family event to see Santa. They spotted a UFO over the flight line of Kelly Air Force Base, and they pulled over with a handful of other people that had also pulled over. She now has, I guess her mom's 81 and listens to our show. I think that's awesome.
That is
Nice.
awesome.
She's a DoorDash driver, and she takes her mom with her, and they listen to our show while they're out doing deliveries. Which I
Nice.
think is really cool.
Best way to drive.
So her mom's 81. She has Alzheimer's now. She doesn't remember all the details, but our listener did hear this story a lot growing up from her mom, so she knows it quite well. The ranking officer at the time at the base was called to the base and was told that there was nothing in the area, that they weren't actually seeing anything. And he was also told to report to the base immediately and was questioned for hours. And then he was told that neither he nor his mom had seen anything and that his pension was at stake if he had spoken of it.
Like, we saw alien. No, you didn't. We saw UFO. Nope, you did not.
Pension says you didn't.
Pretty much.
Your pension says you didn't see. You saw nothing.
Her mom tried several times to get him to talk about it, and he straight up refused to speak about it ever again. She said they also lived in Phoenix for a little bit and saw a few in the 1970s, but no one would ever say it was anything other than a weather balloon. Like
Always a weather balloon.
It was a weather balloon. That was her UFO experience.
Okay.
She did have a paranormal experience as well, and this one was at her grandparents' house in New York, in Brooklyn. So it was before she was born, actually. There was a spirit in her grandparents' home that she says was a little pissy, and it took it out on her great-grandmother. And it got to the point where her great-grandmother was being shoved, but
Wow.
at the top of the stairs, but it wasn't like severely shoved. She wasn't like being like pushed down the stairs or anything, just kind of like, I guess, light pushes.
Some nudges.
Some nudges. So they decided to go to their local church, and they got a blessing on the home. Now, apparently, this young priest that came in to bless the home wasn't happy about the situation, did not want to be there, so he half-assed this blessing on the home. He just kind of went around, sprinkled a little bit of holy water here and there, and just called it good. Right?
I guess, forget about it.
Forget about it. I guess this really pissed off the spirit to the point to where that night, her great-grandmother was actually shoved so hard down the stairs that she ended up with cuts and bruises.
Oh,
Wow.
So the pastor ended up coming back, or the pastor came instead of the young priest, and he blessed the house. And he did it the right way, starting with the basement. And I don't know, we've done house cleansings. Basically, you want to start with one area and work your way to like the front door. So you want to like kind of clear every room and then send all the energy out the front door. So this pastor did it the proper way. He started in the basement, and the basement always scared the crap out of her when she was growing up. She's convinced that it's haunted by a lady that used to live there before her grandparents that was supposedly went to visit her mom or someone there. They got into an argument, and she thinks this lady might have been put in the walls.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, she thinks she was buried at the bottom of the basement stairs in the walls. And then he worked his way up. He did the cleansing the proper way. He got to the second floor. He blessed all the bedrooms, the bathroom, and he got to the hallway there. And there was like a little noise of the transom lifted, which is, I guess, is the cover on skylight. And then it slammed down really hard. And then after that, no more incidences. Nothing else happened.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
So
Wow.
thank you for sharing your stories. This listener, they found us somehow. We're not sure yet. But they live in Jersey.
Yeah, because we're trying to hide, so how are you finding us?
But
No, that's awesome.
no, I think that's really cool that they reached out to us and then shared their stories with us.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, actually, but...
Because
Oh,
we're
no,
famous.
We do get quite a bit of submissions, and we share them when we get a chance. So we shared this one because this actually just came in yesterday. But this week,
More spooks.
more spooks, more spirits, more eerie, creepy stuff.
Wow.
Wow. We're going back to Japan. I like to pick Japan.
Going back? When did we go to Japan before?
When we talked about the suicide force.
We did.
Yeah. So we're going back to Japan.
So- going back.
We're going back to Japan. This time, right around March 11th, 2011.
3/11/11.
3/11/11. I think it was like 2:45 in the afternoon.
I'll take
There
your word.
was, if you didn't know this already, there was a like, depending on what website you're reading, anywhere from an 8.8 to a 9.1 earthquake.
Significant, I've heard.
I guess it's the largest that Japan has ever seen, the fourth largest earthquake in the world, from what I understand. Recorded earthquake. And I believe this happened about 26 miles below sea level. And I know there's several videos you can find online of this earthquake going on for like 5-6 minutes. Like, it was not a short earthquake. I think
wow.
I read somewhere it was like a half an hour, but I don't know if that's accurate.
Wow.
I know it's like 5-6 minutes, this earthquake. Here in Utah, we had one last year. It was only like 4.8? It wasn't
Only.
Yeah. And it probably lasted 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. Do you remember what you were doing in that
Yeah,
earthquake?
I do. It was funny. So I was laying in bed and kind of like,
Because this happened at like 5 or 6 in the morning.
yeah, and I was kind of half asleep, and I was tossing and turning. I was doing something. I was moving, and as I was moving is when it was happening. And I thought I was doing something. Whatever was happening, I thought I just did it. I was like, oh shit, I broke my bed.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, I was actually laying in bed at the time. My baby she was a newborn at the time, and it started going off. I kind of felt it before it happened, kind of like like dogs start barking before it happens. I kind of heard or felt it coming beforehand. I was like, "What the heck is that?" Then right away the shaking started happening, and I went to like panic mode because I had a newborn baby with me in the bed, and
Did you
I
freeze
just
up?
froze. Yeah, because I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, if the earth opened up and created a hole and swallowed me, there's nothing I can do. I felt really helpless, actually.
What was this? This is 2 years ago, right?
2 years
2 years ago.
Where were you?
I was sleeping. My bed started shaking. And for some reason, my first thought was it was a ghost shaking my bed. And I literally yelled out, "Stop it. I'm trying to sleep." And then when I heard the belts in my closet shaking, I was like, "Oh, this is an earthquake." And then it stopped. I went back to bed. But so that earthquake for us was what, maybe 20, 25 miles away from where we live. I mean,
Not for me. Like
you were a lot
5
closer.
from.
You were a lot closer than I was. So, I mean, it was a fairly big earthquake, and it was felt pretty much throughout this whole Salt Lake Valley. So this earthquake, like I said, was huge. This one was felt like 250 miles away,
Yeah.
like in Tokyo. So where this earthquake happened, I don't know the name of the city. I would read it, but I know I'd mispronounce the crap out of it. But 250 miles away in Tokyo, they felt this earthquake. And when the earthquake happened, the emergency people, they knew exactly what to do. They had been trained for this, so they set off the tsunami warning. I believe the tsunami showed up about an hour after the earthquake, and they hadn't completely evacuated the city yet.
Tohoku. City.
Tohoku?
Tohoku.
Yeah.
So they had the warnings that a tsunami was coming for an hour.
Yes.
Okay.
They knew once the earthquake happened, a tsunami was coming.
They knew
It was
it,
inevitable. Like, plan for it. It's going to happen.
They didn't. So they planned for the tsunami, and they knew it was going to happen. They didn't know how big it was going to be. So this tsunami was. So most of them, I guess, roughly around 45 feet. And a tsunami, if you don't know, it's more or less just a huge, giant wave coming in.
Wall of water.
Wall of water. So I guess normally you're looking about, what, 40, 45 feet, somewhere in there. This
Still
one was
huge.
It's huge. This one was 130 feet, about 131 feet tall
Jeez.
at its highest.
Hawaii just had a bunch of big waves from a storm, I believe. I don't know how high those were, but they were going over, like, apartment buildings.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I didn't even know that.
So to
Yeah.
put this into kind of context, I looked it up to see about how tall 131 feet was, other than 131 feet. It's about a 13-story building.
Jeez.
So a building that's got 13 floors. When you hit that 13th floor, that's about how tall this tsunami was. I also showed you that picture a little bit ago of the Genghis Khan statue.
Yep.
Genghis Khan, not Kong. That was also 131 feet, and that's just from the picture alone. That statue looks huge. So I mean, this massive wall of water is coming, and people, even with that hour, they didn't have enough time to get away from this thing because it was just so
So I'll show
large.
you guys. This is in Hawaii. It's going over these apartments, these 2-story apartments. The waves were going over it.
So okay, so
Damn.
you got 2 stories there.
Yeah.
The Japanese tsunami was
13.
13 stories.
Jeez.
And that's scary right there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty scary.
Like 2 stories, a wave 2 stories tall. Shit, yeah. That's crazy.
I don't
No.
know.
Yeah.
Shit.
That is, yeah, just two
That's a 2-story.
2 stories.
No, 6 times that.
Yeah.
Oh my
pretty much.
goodness.
And so as this came in, it was just wiping things out. Like, it was just destroying everything in its path. Watching the videos on that Netflix, the Unsolved Mysteries, it was obviously moving cars. That's to be expected, but it was
moving
taking houses.
Yeah, I
It
remember-
uprooted houses, and it was taking houses down.
I remember watching videos of it months afterwards. So like this, within the same year, months afterwards, and seeing the flow and how it looks like on a camera how slow it's moving, because things are just slowly getting moved.
There's floating. They're
debris,
floating on
things are
top.
floating, but really it's probably coming fast. It's coming fast at it. If you were there, like in the street, watching,
There was
it.
no way to outrun that. That's
No,
for damn sure.
No. Yeah, it's eerie.
Yeah, that would be.
And it's just
Crazy.
like houses and cars and debris and just black mud just rolling at you.
Yeah.
And if that hits you, you're getting tucked into that and you're done.
Well, one of the guys that actually said he got hit by it in that episode, he didn't. Everything was just spinning. He didn't know which way was up. He just kind of picked a way that he thought was up and started swimming towards it, trying to get out of this wall of water that came at him. I don't think he got caught in the big part of the tsunami, but still, like, he was being swept away. He didn't know which way he was going, and he ended up surviving. I think he was one of the ones that set off the alarm to let people know to evacuate. But it was just crazy. There's like no way that they could have prepared for something like that.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is, if you hear the tsunami warnings, get out of Dodge. And that's the
Higher
episode.
ground.
That's the
Higher
episode.
ground.
All right. Well, thanks, you guys.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah. So nearly 20,000 people were killed. It's more than 15,000 people were killed.
Like 15,000 confirmed dead and like almost 3,000 still
Missing. Still
yeah.
missing to this day.
So you think there might be a little bit of some wandering spirits from that, right?
Little lot of it.
Only some.
Okay.
Only 13, actually. I
That
have
we
no
know
idea.
of.
I don't know. So, going down the list real quick of kind of like some of the spirits they talked about, or some of the incidences they talked about of what happening.
But
In the months
that's the point of
afterwards.
this episode, right? We're
Oh yeah, so we're talking about the spirits
spirits.
of the paranormal activity that people were having after this tsunami occurred.
Because it's a significant amount of deaths. So you've got to assume there's got to be some residual hauntings or effects happening with people that were 1 minute just walking down the street, next minute swept up in a wall of water and gone.
And I think we talked about it a little bit on the Suicide Forest episode. Japan looks at death a lot different than we do here in the U.S. They just see it like as kind of just walking through like one of those thin paper doors they have in their houses.
Right,
So it's not like they don't really have a grieving process similar to what we do. I don't know if they do bereavement or not. I know they don't have. One of the guys was talking about that they don't really do like the grief counselors. They don't grieve the same way that Americans.
Well, they accept it, right? It's like,
They just kind of accept
it's going to
it's
happen.
happening. I think what was frustrating for a lot of people is it's customary to cremate the dead
In Japan.
And because the nuclear power plant was knocked out, they had
Meaning
no
no
power.
incinerator.
Yep. They had no power to power the incinerator. So
And
they
there's
didn't
also
have
probably a massive amount at once.
Yes. So they were...
That was the name of that wall, that paper wall. Shoji.
Soji, yes, that's right. They did say that in there. I just forgot
Yeah.
that. So yeah, Soji. It's just a door between rooms in a Japanese home that it's just paper and it's thin and see-through. That's kind of like the Vel. If
Yeah, that's what they consider, like kind
they
of like the
consider
veil.
it, yeah, they just
You could see the out, like you could still see through it and see that they're there.
yes. So yeah, they have a whole different look on spirituality. They're not an extremely religious country. They just look at death differently than most other places do, and
Japanese are pretty smart.
they are. So yeah, they don't grieve the same way we do. Like I said, the hardest thing was they had to bury their dead, which is not customary. And then when they finally got the power working again, it was just difficult for people to see like all these bodies now being dug back up, so they can be taken to the incinerator.
How
so they
hard
can
would that be,
cremated.
going to your house and digging your family out if you survived? It's like everyone that survived pretty much had to do this.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there was what we were talking about when Beaker mentioned a series on Netflix. We're watching Unsolved Mysteries. We kind of talked about it a little bit. There's a gentleman who talked about his family, and he went outside and was wandering around looking for his family, found his oldest daughter kind of in an entanglement of bamboo shoots.
It's like laying across them, hunched over, but
Yeah.
on top of the trees.
Found his wife a few miles down the way in mud or something like that, and then found his baby buried in mud and blue. And as he told that story, he kind of choked up. And obviously I choked up. But I can imagine that's just one person. I'm choking up over it. I can't imagine how many people had to do that, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. And then yeah, just with all that death happening so quick, has to be spirits. And the way they believe there too, like if you don't give them the proper burial, they're going to be wandering spirits.
Yes, they're going to be lost.
And they
confused.
couldn't, they couldn't do anything because they cremate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. It's not customary to bury there. It's customary to cremate, and I said they weren't able to do that. And when they finally did, it was just. I can imagine how sombering it would be just to watch just like casket after casket being.
That's what
wheeled
they
in.
said, yeah. There's just one after another for
That was that Reverend Monk on the show. That
Mm-hmm.
he was just. It was hard to see. And I think his first experience, the first bodies he saw were 2 teenage girls, I believe.
Yeah, 2 5th-grade girls.
2 5th-grade girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being willed in to go into the crematory, and it was just. I mean, there was just so many, like it just one after the other. Kind of like the death chutes at Waverly. That's why they put them in. Is just because there's so many people dying, and they had to be ushered out of the hospitals. So, I mean, there's this huge tragedy, a lot of death. So it was about a month after people started experiencing things.
Yeah, soon after.
I think
A few months.
Yeah, one of the first experiences that they talked about was, I guess this happened to several people. Several people had reported this, where people would show up at their house, knock on the door, and they would just be soaked, drenched, and they'd be asking for just like a dry pair of clothes. Apparently, this happened quite a bit, especially like even in the summertime where it hadn't even been raining or anything. People like wearing their regular clothes.
Oh yeah, and we didn't mention this part too. When right after this happened, right after the flood happened, it was snowing
Oh
bad.
yeah, it was snowing.
So right after they just got hit with this, just nonstop snow.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Mother
yeah.
Nature just said, "Screw you guys."
Yeah, for a little bit, you guys were getting dumped on with
Yeah,
everything.
land, water, and snow.
It's everything. So, what are some of the other?
So one guy was looking for his mom, and she
Oh, that's
was
right.
at a rest home, and it was hard to tell from the story if he mentioned like did he go there right after it had happened to see if she was
I
okay?
think it was just before it had happened.
Just before.
I believe.
Yeah, so he goes there to the rest home to find her, and they went to go check to see if they could see her or where she was, and then he sees a woman standing by the window, who he can see from the back. He's like, "Oh, that's my mom right here."
Yeah, she was wearing her clothes and
Wearing her
everything.
clothes and everything, and sees that she's okay and was happy that she's okay. Goes to take a picture of her so he can send it to his family that, hey, look, mom's okay. Takes a picture, then looks at her, and all of a sudden, completely different face. Not his mom anymore. And then come to find out, just had happened, the van that she was in got swept away by the tsunami.
Right as he was taking the picture.
Yep.
Some other stuff. I'm trying
But the
to
one,
remember. That
a
was-
significant one for me was a lady. I don't know. I can't remember if she declared herself as a medium or not. But
she did say that she grew up being able to see spirits.
Yeah,
And
she was like,
she
I
said she
thought-
had talked to spirits when she was younger. And
Yeah,
like,
I thought everybody saw these dead spirits when growing up. I didn't know I was the only one.
do you remember how she described?
Yeah, I
seeing
was about to
spirits?
ask that too.
No.
Okay, so she said, so when we talked to Brandy, she sees spirits as they are or were when they died. So she just their auras, their energy is not as bright as like a living person's energy. She said that these people looked kind of transparent to her.
Oh.
Like that's how she knew that they were spirits, is because
Yes,
they
that's
looked
right.
almost see through to her.
I remember now.
So she was driving along.
Yeah,
and-
so she was driving down the road, and then she said a few guys stood out in front of her car and stopped her, and they were just completely lost. But she knew they were dead. She knew.
Just the way that it looked.
Yeah, just the way they looked, and they were talking to her, and like they were saying they were scared, and they were trying to find their way back home, and if she could help them, and she finally had to say, "I'm sorry, guys, but you're dead. You're gone. You died in the tsunami, basically." And just seeing their faces,
And she said, Michelle told them that their city doesn't exist anymore.
yeah.
yeah.
And that's got to be heartbreaking to break the news to them. 'Cause that's how she felt. She felt heartbroken to have to break. She's the one that had to break the news to them that they were no longer living. And I'm thinking of her. Like that's got to be hard, right? To break that type of news to them. Like, hey, you are no longer here. You have to move on. And these guys are probably still like, I don't know where to go. I don't know where my family is. They're just kind of like wandering spirits. I feel terrible for these gentlemen, these spirits. And it's funny how these guys, these spirits, found each other. I think that's kind of interesting. I think it's also interesting how do they, have they try to stop other vehicles? Why her?
Right, yeah.
Or do they try to stop every vehicle? She just happened to be the one that stopped because she can see them.
That's exactly what I pictured.
Or did they recognize that she is someone that could see them, and that's why they said, "Oh, wait, this driver, she can see us." And then they went out to try to stop her. Well, I don't know. They obviously didn't know they were dead, so I don't know.
My thought is that they were just kind of wandering on the road and kind of trying to stop every car.
Yeah, I'm glad that these guys have found each other, because now they're not alone out there. But it's still very sad that they probably still feel very alone and probably miss their family, but they don't know what to do. That's pretty sad.
Well, there was also the gentleman at the very beginning of the episode, before they started going into the tsunami stuff. There was the guy that talked about how someone showed up at his door, and he's like, "Well, who are you?" And the guy's like, He's like, I don't think he said his name, but he told him that he was at the bottom of the ocean. And then he looked at this is the Reverend, the monk. And the guy asked the monk, he's like, "Am I dead?" And he's like, "Unfortunately, yes, you are. There was an earthquake, and you were taken by the tsunami."
And what, did he say this was the first time anything like this has ever happened to him?
I think so.
Yeah, so he said he wasn't prepared for anything that was about to happen to him.
Yeah, and then it just got crazier for him.
Yeah.
We'll get to that story. I think we'll save that one for last.
Okay.
Because they did, so we will. There was people that reported like a woman wearing a red dress just standing in the middle of nowhere, like where the city used to be. There was also
the little kid, the one with the mom who was very depressed. Her 3-year-old son.
Yes.
He had got swept away. I think because he wasn't with the family when this happened. It doesn't sound like they didn't really get into detail. But it sounded like their 3-year-old wasn't with any of the family members. So it sounded like the mom was going through a really rough time. So she was going through depression, panic attacks, just in a bad headspace, and constantly she had an older daughter that she kept telling things to about, like, I'm gonna be so much happier or when I'm dead, or what?
She said something like, "You'll be sad when I'm gone, but I'll be happy because I'm in heaven."
Yeah, things like that. Just messed up stuff like that.
Like she basically alluded to the fact that she was going to commit suicide.
Yeah, pretty much kept saying these hints that.
I think the night that her event happened was the night that she had actually planned on killing herself. That's what it kind of made it seem like in the show. But while they were eating dinner, she said to her deceased son, because
they had the toys that stayed.
Yeah, his toys were still there.
And right before they were about to eat, she turned towards the toys and called him over to eat. And next thing you know, one of the toys activates. And it's not a type of toy that just you move it and it goes off, or it's not something that would go off on its own.
Yeah, it's not like light or motion censored. It has a button you have to push.
You have to activate it by manually pushing something, and that's the only way to get it to go. And there was nothing around it to activate it. So as soon as she calls him over, that activates, and she feels more of a peace of mind that he's still there with her, and that kind of turns her around out of that depressed, panicked state that she was in. And she started feeling better after that. Knowing that he was still there and watching over her made her feel a lot better.
I can see that. That's nice.
So I don't know how many times did it keep interacting with her throughout.
They just made it sound like it happened the one time, but I don't know.
Yeah. They didn't get into much details about it, but it is very interesting how that happened.
Yeah, that did turn her perspective on life around, and she started being more positive.
Yeah, started going back to her old self again.
There's stories of like an old lady that would go visit her friends for like tea time, and when she left, the seats, the cushions would be soaked in salt water.
Oh.
There was a
spirits just soaking up water and just leaving stuff everywhere. Jeez. Mm-hmm.
There was a student at one of the universities there that was doing a thesis. Their professor told him to come up with like an original thing to talk about, and she had decided to talk about the spirits of the tsunami, the reportings and stuff like that. And so what she did is she reached out to 100 different cab drivers, and 7 actually talked to her about their experiences. So there's a lot of experiences with different cab drivers, picking up people. Like the first one that they talked about was there was a driver picked up a 20-year-old man. This was several months later, so this was in about August, and from what they said in Japan in August, it's pretty warm outside, and this gentleman was wearing kind of a thicker, heavier coat, and I think he was a little bit wet, and the guy was kind of like confused because it hadn't been raining or anything, but the guy gets in the car and asks him to take them to this like plateau town, and he's like, all right, starts the fair, and as he's driving, he gets kind of this uneasy feeling that something just wasn't right about his passenger. He gets to the destination, turns around to ask for the fare, and the guy is nowhere to be found. There were several other cab drivers that had similar stories. People getting into their cars, like soaking wet, even though it hadn't been raining or anything. They turn around to ask like where they want to go, and there's nobody there. The sociologist professor, these are the stories that he believes in the most. He doesn't really believe in spirits and stuff like that, but he was talking about he believes these, and the reason for that being there was actual like physical evidence of these things happening. There was the cab drivers, obviously when they start the fair, it logs the trip, and the drivers are saying there's no passengers, and because the meter was running, these drivers end up having to pay the fare out of their own pocket. One of the drivers just say like, these spirits are just looking for their home, and they're trying to find a place to be, and as long as they're out there wanting to get into his cab, he's going to take them if he can. There was another cab driver that said a lady got in his car and asked her to take him to her city or her little town that she lived in, and he's like, I can't take you there, that doesn't exist anymore, it was destroyed. And I guess the lady just looked at him and goes, am I dead then? And then I guess she just disappeared after that.
That's crazy. That's interesting how it's a weird analogy, but I think about like the cartoons when Wile E. Coyote runs off the cliff, doesn't realize he's hanging off the cliff until he looks down, like, oh, then he falls down, right? It's almost like that type of analogy where they don't really realize they're dead until someone actually tells them, oh, you're dead, and they don't seem to argue about it. They're just like, oh.
I thought so.
Exactly. So it was almost like I kind of had a feeling, and thanks for breaking the news. A little sad. A little sad.
There's just all these lost wandering spirits. That's how the Japanese look at them. They're just trying to find home. And a lot of people they're trying to help them the best they can. There was an incident with the Okawa Elementary School. Did you hear about this one?
No.
So there were 75 students who died at the school during the tsunami. 74 were from the elementary there.
So did they not evacuate then?
They probably thought they were high enough up.
Oh, I see.
Because if most tsunamis are like 20, 40 feet,
okay,
the elevation, they're probably at like 80 feet elevation. They're like, oh, no, we're good. We're way up. And then here comes a 130-foot wave. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this became kind of like a spot where kids would be kids, and they dared each other to go to the school and search for the spirits of the deceased kids. It ended up leading to, there was a mother of one of the students actually went and consulted a psychic about her kid. They went to the school together, and after the mother had tied decorations into the surrounding bamboo trees, the psychic told her that the deceased children were delighted with the decorations. But he also described horrifying scenes of the veneer between life and death, describing that there was dead crawling around on the ground near the school. Some of them were stuck in the water, covered in mud, and swallowing the dirty water in terrible suffering, and some of them were trapped and trying to get out, according to the mother. But a different medium said that the mother the different medium told the mother a different story, basically. So she got two different stories from two different mediums. The second one said, you might think that the kids want their parents to find them, that they're so desperate to go back home, but they are already home. They are already in a very good place, and the more you bury yourselves in the search, the more desperate you will become. So basically, one psychic is like, the kids are happy that you put this decorations up, but there's a lot of pain and suffering going on, people stuck in the mud, And then another psychic is like, no, they're all fine. Stop looking into it. And I kind of agree with that. Like, you get so grief stricken that you start just
Thinking of the worst.
you stop living your life while you're searching for your loved one.
Yeah.
And it's going to take you down a hole that you might not be able to come out of, like the lady with the toy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was on the brink of suicide, and luckily her son was able to reach her through the toy, or a spirit was able to reach her through the toy and keep her
Yeah, I
alive.
just kind of hope that it is her son.
There was another story. There's actually a couple possession stories that we have. Do you remember? There was one gentleman. Do you know that story?
Mm-mm.
I guess he was just there visiting. I got so many websites. He was there visiting like the area where the tsunami happened, and he came home. Let's see. So he came back. So one day he drove to the beach to survey the devastation and was shocked by what he saw. And then he went back home. When he came back that evening, he sat down for dinner with his family, had his tea, had a can of beer, and then he began rolling around on the ground outside, making animal noises, running around into the field behind his house, rolling in the mud, all while his wife and mother just kind of watched in horror. Like, they didn't know what the hell's going on.
Poison in that beer.
Yeah.
Maybe. I guess he woke up the next morning and he didn't know anything about it. He didn't know that this had happened. He continued doing this for like 3 days, and he would talk in this strange guttural way with a threatening voice and talking about the dead. His family were kind of beside themselves, and they eventually persuaded him to go to a priest who recited the Buddhist sutras and drove out the spirits, and he felt a lot better after that. And
Good for
then-
him.
Yeah, it could be also a little manic episode.
That could be. So a lot of these stories,
And not necessarily
So-
that it has anything to do with a tsunami spirit either.
no. But they just kind of tied it together because,
Because it happened in Japan.
well,
Way
no,
to go.
because he went to where the tsunami
I'm kidding.
occurred. The guy lived in Japan. He just went and visited the area. And they also, in the Netflix series, they talk about this lady named Amy, who was apparently being possessed. And this is where the monk, this is the one thing that he was definitely not prepared for. Because he's seen, like, I guess he had seen forms of possession before, but nothing like this. One day his wife came home with this lady, and they were, like, trying to force her to come in the house. She was acting all weird. He said he's actually done several sessions with this lady, and sometimes they start at, like, 7 at night and go till about 2 or 3 in the morning.
Jeez.
And the first one they were talking about, there was a little girl and then there was a guy apparently in possessing this woman. And the girl, I guess, was trying to get away, and the guy was like holding her foot and not letting her get away, if I remember correctly. And I know at one point, like, the guy was yelling about everyone being dead and everyone else should be dead too. That might have been a different possession, I don't remember. But they were able to, like, kind of clear her of those spirits. To me, it just seems like more channeling than full-on possession. But they did, one of the stories they did talk about was the brother and sister. Do you remember that one?
No.
So she said she actually saw this very vividly. She was able to, she kind of relived this situation. There was a brother and sister that were holding hands, and they were running from the wave, the water. And they were running as fast as they could, and it got to the point where, like, the sister could no longer feel her brother's hand in hers, and looked and saw that he had been swept away with the tsunami. And apparently that little girl was in this woman, this Amy, and
Okay, I do remember.
they were trying to talk to her, and they kind of looked up at the priest and like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Well, I'm Reverend so and so this place." And the person's like, "Why am I here? Why am I talking to you?" And then I guess his wife stepped in, or the girl started, like, kind of screaming like, "I want my mom, I want my mommy," and she felt like super sad that she had let her brother down that she had let go of his hand. And so I just mixed two stories. The "Who are you?" and that was the other story. So yeah, this little girl was just like worried that her mom was going to be mad at her for not taking care of her brother. And so the Reverend's wife stepped in and acted as the mother, and she said, Mommy's here, everything's all fine. You need to go to the light. Come with me to the light. And she said she walked her to the light and was able to help that spirit cross over. And then the last one was the guy that was like angry, not knowing why he was there. I don't remember the end of that one.
So thinking of that story, do you think the kids have the ability to channel or possess someone?
I think any spirit can channel through somebody if the person is
a vessel.
A vessel. If some like Caden or Brandy, someone that is more on the sensitive side. So the Reverend did tell this lady, like when she was kind of asking, do I have a mental illness? Is this why this is going on? He's like, no, I don't believe you have a mental illness. He's like, I think you were just more sensitive than most people.
Okay.
So it's possible that she's gifted and spirits are attracted to her in that way. Like we've talked about on other episodes where spirits can kind of tell the people that are gifted.
Yeah.
People that can see them or hear them and we'll be able to communicate with them easily than most people, right? So it's possible that she was somewhat gifted, and they knew this, so they kept going to her, seeking that help that they wanted.
Okay.
I think he said he's helped her many times, and he's told her, like, anytime you need help, come back.
It's interesting. There's so many deaths all at once. I mean, it just makes sense, especially the ones where people are just in the middle of the street, whether trying to catch rides with a taxi or wave somebody down to help them or ask for directions or guidance of some sort. I mean, it just makes sense to me. Because they were probably in the street or in a building nearby, and last thing they know, they were on their way to work or on their way to school or just going for a walk, going to a destination. That's the last thing they may remember. Then they
were probably thinking they were safe and high ground.
Yeah, and then they kind of like are waking up again. Like, what am I doing here? How do I get here? Where's everybody at? Why can't I not do things? Maybe why can't I walk a certain distance? Why can't I open a door? Why can't I do certain things like I used to do?
Have you ever thought about being in that position? Like
yes,
just
I do.
Dying abruptly and being a spirit going, shit, I got so many things I had to do.
Yeah. Like that's what I'm saying. Like they are, maybe they feel different. They feel weird than someone when they ask, like, am I dead? Or, hey, you're dead. And they're just like, yeah, I kind of had a feeling. I kind of was assuming such. And I kind of think they feel that way. And it's just, it's weird. I also think about the movie Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis, right?
Yes.
And he's doing the whole he's like a therapist. Is that what he's supposed to be doing with the little boy? And then who sees spirits, and then he realizes, wait, I am a spirit. Spoiler alert! Sorry, spoiler. You haven't seen The Sixth Sense yet.
I've always thought about in that case, like being a spirit like that and not realizing you're dead. Are you just kind of like in and out of a type of a consciousness, like not knowing what's going on? You're kind of just seeing things in an area, wondering what's happening, and then a little bit of time goes by, boom, you're somewhere else wondering, why am I here? What's happening here? And I don't know. It just trips me out, the whole thought of it.
I'm on the road a lot, and I ride motorcycles, and I'm always worried if something ever happened to me, and it would be instantaneous. And I think about that, like, how would I get back to my family? I would need to get back to my house somehow. I think about it.
Let them know that you're still watching them.
And I would watch them. I don't know if I'd let them know, but I want to watch over them. I would like you to visit me. Tell me what's going on.
I would too. I'd write things on the mirror.
I won't.
I don't know about that. Come in my dreams or something like that. Tell me stories in my dreams.
Like, hey, brother, let me tell you some ghost shit.
Let me flipping light switches on me.
Let me tell you some ghost stories.
Big brother, stop. Ghosty, I know that's you. Stop it.
Flipping off the lights.
How about you, Beaker? Do you think about that stuff?
No.
What do you think about?
Oh, chocolate cake.
on a
good.
regular basis.
Yeah. Doesn't everybody?
I think about beignets.
Beignets. We just have beignets. So it was a guy that was rolling around in the mud that was like telling everybody to die and drop dead because everybody else was dead, so they needed to die too. No, I wasn't listening. What was the question?
Do you think about that? Like, if you were to die abruptly, instantly, do you today alive think about that?
Like how what your spirit would be going through if
No, I've actually never thought of that.
you're going to tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna drive home in the
No,
dark.
Probably not.
Yeah, you're gonna think about somebody just T-boned me and I died right now.
You know what my greatest fear used to be, though? It was like going and
Choking
getting fast food, right?
and choking on
And
it.
then getting in a car accident and dying before I got a chance to eat it.
I'm more worried like there's gonna be all this fast food mess all over my car.
It's like I didn't get
clean
I
up.
didn't get to eat this delicious food I just got.
No, I'm more worried like. So he died. He must have just went to a restaurant because there was like milkshake all over the place. there's
brings the
Coke
voice
everywhere, French fries all over the place. Like, oh, that's embarrassing.
No, yeah, I've never put any thought into like what would happen if I just suddenly wasn't here anymore.
How do you not think of that?
Yeah, all the things that you haven't finished yet.
I'm good.
Like, I want to live forever.
I do too.
I want to see flying spaceships like in Jetsons. Like that's our main mode of transportation. I want to see what kind of cool tablets or inventions I can
Well,
play with.
imagine being an adult for the last just 100 years. So much has happened technology-wise.
I don't want to. I want to see.
Imagine
where, I wanna
being
see
an
where we're
adult
going.
now in the last 10 years. so
No,
much
I'm
has
just
happened.
saying. So imagine
in the
the
last
next
10 years.
Imagine the next 100 years.
I know.
So being alive as an adult for the next 100 years, there'd be a lot of cool shit happening.
So much cool stuff. I want to see it all.
Exactly.
Well, you probably could. Just
I want to
in
experience it all.
you probably could, just in a different life, in a different way.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I want to
I'm
stay
not
an
gonna
adult
be conscious
forever.
of it.
I don't want to go through this whole childhood bullshit, not knowing shit, and then having to relearn everything.
Well, unfortunately, that's the way it works.
Oh, this is stupid. I want to be a vampire.
Okay.
If that was an option, if that was on the table, I'm taking it.
Yeah, live forever vampire. Unless somebody comes
In
down
fact,
with
if any of our
wooden
listeners or
stakes.
viewers know of any vampires that can make me live forever, please send them my way.
How
And tell
boring
them to
would it be?
subscribe.
Have you never seen Highlander?
Highlander?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I
think
love
it
that.
gets boring. Just living.
Well, I mean, they're living for thousands of years. I'm just talking about.
I just want 100 years and then I'm good.
Well, until I'm ready, good and ready. I'm like, oh, go ahead and stake me through the heart now.
Let me do it on my terms.
Yeah.
When I'm bored.
Self-assisting. I want
You can't get close to anybody because you know they're going to end up passing away and you're still just going to be living like Edward Cullen.
I think I could do it.
going high school to high school. How creepy is that, right? He's 100 years old and he's going to high school.
Picking up a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I
Twinkle
can't
Toes.
believe I just made that reference.
Is that
It's a Twilight.
Twilight?
Edward Cullen, Robert Pattinson's character.
Yeah, that went over my
I'm
head.
so sad that I know this.
Me too.
You know whose fault it is?
But you're talking about
Brandy made me watch him.
you're talking about the book, right? You're talking about the book.
Well, Robert Pattinson was the actor that played him in the Twilight.
You're talking about the book, right? Yeah.
Sure, I've never read the book.
What you're talking about?
I don't read. You've seen how well I read on the show. You've heard. I
Fourth
can't
grade
even
level.
read. Medium star. I couldn't read Street Glide. Unlike other podcasts, we save the pointless banter for the end of the show
That's right.
instead of 20 minutes into the show before they talk about
Well, we
anything.
kind of did that too. But,
Yeah, a little bit. No, but we read listener submitted stories.
eh,
That's relevant.
it is. It
Yeah,
is.
it is.
It very. Well, should we call that an episode, guys?
Like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook. We need the yacht Instagram. We have TikTok. I don't do much with it.
EVP.pod.
We thought about it. We might do something with it.
We'll dance. We'll dance for you.
Dance if we want to.
No, we don't. You don't play that.
Peace out, butterflies.
Surf's up.
This is the EVP Podcast.